Hey folks, it's Preparedness. Thank you for joining me today. In this video, I want to take a quick checkup on the current events going on in Eastern Europe. And I want to view this within the context of history. And also I want to submit to your consideration general preparedness steps that you can take that are also historically informed. So it's important that you listen to this video throughout the entirety of it, because you're going to want to get a full perspective on this and not make snap judgments. You need to fully wrap your head around what's going on. Part two, I want to ask that you share this with people who are important to you and people whose preparedness directly impacts your quality of life. So friends, family, people in your churches, groups, fellowships, synagogues, whoever. It's important that your friends get this information as well. So first, the area of Eastern Europe has known conflict for hundreds of years. This is nothing new, and I want to underscore that. There is nothing new under the sun in general, but there is nothing new about conflict in Eastern Europe. This has been going on for generations and generations. Part one. Part two, Russian expansionism and the desire to unify the Slavic peoples is as old as the hills in that part of the world. So what you're seeing is an extension of previously fought conflicts. We had been, for the past really 50 years, at this rather tenuous pause of hostilities in the area. But that doesn't mean that it went away or that it was resolved. One of the shortcomings, and I say this in honesty and in sincerity, one of the shortcomings of the American historical framework is that because our nation is so young, we have a wonderful nation built on principles of the revolution and of a constitutional republic. But we are very short-sighted in the United States because our long view of history is just a few hundred years old, whereas the long view of history in other parts of the world is thousands of years old. This conflict that you are seeing is much longer than just 8 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. This conflict is hundreds of years old. So first, I want to, now that we've mentioned just briefly the historical aspect of this, we need to look into a current reality of an interconnected world and how information is being shared and how disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda is being spread right now. You have to understand that communism got its foothold in this part of the world. Pan-Slavic unity, meaning gathering together anyone who was an ethnic Slav and gathering together under one banner and one government peoples who had ever been governed by Russian governments. This nuanced perspective is partially what gave rise and success to communism in the USSR and in the Russian Empire before that. This idea is nothing new, like I've said, but also the effectiveness with which the political weapon of propaganda has been exploited, deployed, and used by Russian governments since the rise of communism is not to be underestimated. Simply because you have access to the internet, that doesn't mean, and I'm saying this, I'm trying to say this in humility, that doesn't mean that just because you find something on an alternative outlet that it happens to be truth. The incredible capability that communism has developed since its inception to manipulate people's emotions, to control their thoughts through planting stories and through planting ideas. Do not underestimate this. Please do not underestimate this. I want to point something out here with regards to all these crazy rumors, just insane and ludicrous rumors that are going around about what's really going on behind the scenes. What's really going on behind the scenes is what has been going on for hundreds of years in that area. There is nothing new that has changed. And there is not a messianic figure working behind the scenes that's going to cure all the problems so that you in America can sit at home, watch Wheel of Fortune, and do nothing and feel good about it. The propaganda that is going around right now to make a murdering former KGB agent look like a savior is just that. It is propaganda. This is not true, and it is not real. Friends, I want to ask you to reflect back on something. Do you remember in February of 2020 when all these leaked videos and these behind the scenes videos started coming out of China, and they started showing people falling dead in the streets by masses and hundreds and making it appear to be a new smallpox type of plague, ask yourself this question. Now that we have data, do those pictures and videos that were leaked and that we were assured were the real story coming out from behind the scenes, do those pictures and do those videos that you were assured by people were the real scoop, does that add up with what you know of reality and what you know of clinical data demonstrating mortality rates to what they are? The answer is resoundingly no. Let me ask you something. Why were these videos leaked at the times that they were, coming out of China, a totalitarian regime run by, again, communists? Why did it come out at the time that it did? Because it feeds on people's fears, and it feeds on their suspicions, and it feeds on their innermost desires. This is what propaganda is. It bypasses the mind, it bypasses the intellect, and it arouses the emotions to get people to jump on board things that they otherwise would be absolutely repulsed at. The Chinese Communist Party released these videos so that it could foment fear in order to suppress democratic processes in Hong Kong, to control and suppress political dissidents at home in mainland China, and to destabilize the rest of the world so that it could accomplish its political objectives from within and from without. This is propaganda. This is from 2 years ago, and people seem to have forgotten this. What you are seeing right now with this massive flood of rumors, wars and rumors of wars, what you are seeing right now is a flood of sensory overloading input that is designed to paralyze you with emotion. That is not negating what is happening on the ground, because there are real people suffering. There are real people suffering. There are hundreds of thousands of people who have had to flee their homes with nothing but a suitcase, including people that I'm connected to. So I happen to know that there is real suffering on the ground, and I'm sure many of you know people who are also in situations over there. But within the historical framework, coming up to where we're at now, we are at a turning in history. I've been speaking about this for years. We are at a turning in history. The destabilization that has come about as a result of the pandemic created a vacuum of power, ultimately, that we allowed to happen as the de facto empire currently in the United States. We allow this to happen with our feckless leadership in the executive branch. When you have a puppet who is sitting in the White House who can barely form a cohesive sentence, this creates a vacuum of power, and nature abhors a vacuum. When you have these parallel timelines going around, it is little wonder that the pause button suddenly got pushed into play for pan-Slavic idealism and for reunification of the former Soviet socialist republics that Putin has said that he has wanted. This is part of the next turn of history. We are sitting at a junction point between acts. So knowing where we're at and knowing that propaganda is being used expertly by communist elements, which is what they do, that's how they got in power in the first place, that is how they persist in controlling people and keeping power, is through propaganda. Rather than react emotionally and believe fanciful stories about messiah figures who have been removed from office and who are now supposed to be coming back together in unity with former KGB agents, let's be realistic about the facts on the ground, and let's be realistic about our place in history. Regardless of where you are at in the world, history favors the prepared. If you know history, you can very well accomplish a much more comfortable present and be situated to survive successfully in the future. The way that we do this is to focus on the things that have always been needed by human beings: food, shelter, clothing, protection, and medical attention, medical needs. The beans, bullets, and the band-aids. This is not a time to fear, and this is not a time to indulge in fanciful delusions of grandeur and messianic thinking. This is a time to be decisive and to be calm. The things that are going to manifest economically are the things that have always manifested economically whenever there have been supply line disruptions and whenever there has been disruptions in trade and decoupling of national infrastructure and free trade associated therewith. Commodity prices are likely going to increase. This is as a result of destabilization of markets. If commodities such as food staples become disrupted in their ability to be transacted freely back and forth, their price is going to go up. So it therefore benefits you to have food stored up, to have at least a month's worth of food supply ready, so that way you are not dependent upon the handouts of a government which may or may not view you favorably at any given time. The bullet standpoint is also very, very critical and extremely valuable in times of destabilization and in war. You are always going to need to protect yourself physically. You're always going to need to protect your property, and you're always going to need to protect your family. So having the ability to shield yourself and to protect yourself, attending to your own personal security without delegating this to someone else who may or may not have your best interest at heart, that is going to serve you. So being familiar with your weapons, being familiar with how to use them, making sure, for instance, that if you have a rifle or a pistol, that your rifle or your pistol is cleaned, it is lubed, it is zeroed, it is ready to go. You know which ammunition it likes, you know where it impacts, you know where your holds are. You are a rifleman or a riflewoman, and you are focused on taking care of the tool that helps to secure your freedom and safeguard your liberty. From the Band-Aid side of things, war, famine, and disease are ubiquitous. There is a need in areas right now where people are fleeing. There is a need for medical supplies. But medical supplies are part of the equation. You have to have skill. You need to have assessment capability. You need to have knowledge. And you need to be able to be creative and resourceful when your medical supplies are not there. That is going to happen. There will always be a cessation of pre-produced medical supplies. That is as old as trade itself. So as part of your preparedness, you need to know how to source your medicine from nature. You need to know how to source your medical supplies and the things that you know you're going to need yourself as best as possible. This includes production, this includes trade, this includes, frankly, decreasing your need on commercially prepared medicines. You can do this with diet and lifestyle choices, obviously. In the United States, we are blessedly insulated from a lot because of our geography, because of our landmass, and our founders understood this, but they also warned us over and over again about getting involved in Europe, the entanglements associated therewith, because they knew that invariably these conflicts that had been fought for thousands of years were not going to be resolved by treaties. They were not going to be resolved by empire police task force of the world enforcement. They understood the nature of mankind. Human beings do not change. Their nature does not change. Only technology changes. Their alliances and the entangling alliances and the wars of Europe have always gone on, and unfortunately they always will go on as long as we are in this world and this heaven and this earth. If you are in the areas associated with this conflict, I want to encourage you to get together with people who share your values and who share your faith. And many people already have, hearing reports from people in Poland and also in Ukraine and in Hungary and in Finland getting together and preparing just to make sure that their bases are covered. And I think that's very, very wise. In times like this, we really need to be quiet in our spirit and listen. And let me encourage you to devote and set aside time each day to pray and to be quiet and to listen. Listen in your spirit and ask God for direction in your life and for wisdom. The Lord gives wisdom to people freely if they'll ask. But it takes humility to do this. And the answer of what is best for you may not be the answer of what is best for another person, because we're all different and we have different roles and different destinies and different things that we are in this world to accomplish. But if you are faithful and obedient to what God shows you, you're going to be situated for success no matter what. So I want to encourage you with that. But I want to encourage you also not to despair in times like this. Since man has been alive, there has been conflict of his own making. And as long as we are here in this configuration of reality, this is how it is. We have lived in a bubble of peace for a very, very long time. We are transitioning right now, in my opinion, to a time where this will not be so. So let me encourage you to get together with people. Focus on the beans, bullets, and band-aids. And I want to encourage you also to focus on your belief and prayer, particularly fasted prayer and quiet time with you and God. For those of you who are in the United States, you have the option to train various different places. Obviously, to train and be skilled in your own defense. That is important. The militia is very, very valuable in times like what we're seeing here, because ultimately the only person who can be responsible for safeguarding your liberty and your freedom is you. Your security rests on your capability. Governments exist to safeguard the rights of man until such time as they become despotic and totalitarian. Then they are the oppressors of man's rights. And at such time, it is appropriate to throw them off or to resist them, particularly when these governments are invading your own, the one that is trying to safeguard your rights as best as possible. As long as government has been, it has been oppressing and growing into totalitarian states until such time as it's thrown off. Again, this is the cycle and nature of history. There is nothing new under the sun. If you're honest about it, and if we're honest about it, we're not arguing over nuances of what's going on. The intelligent person is having a discussion right now as to where we sit in history. So that's the question. Let me ask you, where do you think we sit in history? Where do you think, based on where you're at in this world, the next steps are going to be for you? What steps are going to be most helpful for you in the days to come, knowing what you know about history and knowing what you know about your role in it? In the United States, we have the ability to defend ourselves, thank God. But also we have the ability to store up food, to prepare food, to get trained. And you have the ability right now to act and to put the time in, the effort in, to secure yourself now. So I want to encourage you to do that. Regardless of where you are in the world, if you want to train with me online, you can do that. It's borderless. 4 hours, it's $129. I have a link down below. And you can train with me in an environment that, as long as you understand English, and you can access it whenever you need. It's evergreen. As long as there is an internet and you have access to that internet, you'll be able to access the online course. So I got that link down below. If you want to train with me in person here in the United States, I've got classes coming up. Columbus, Ohio is coming up in a couple weeks. That class is almost sold out. We also have Jacksonville, Florida. I have a few more spaces for that. Also Kalispell, Montana, Denver, Colorado, and several other places. Check the website out for the full schedule. But I did want to cover that with you guys today and just be real and talk about the things that matter. I hope it was helpful for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video and got benefit of it, please subscribe and please share this video again. Please share this video with the people in your life that matter, so that way we can get on the same page. I hope y'all have a very blessed week. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off. And I'll see y'all later.